We talked about the modes of mechanical ventilation the previous podcast, but it is very difficult to understand that podcast and until unless you know the parameters of ventilation, you know different pathologies with which the patient are presenting in the ICU. If you haven't worked in the medical wards, if you don't know about the physiology of the respiration, if you don't know about all those parameters on which we adjust the ventilator, it's very tough for you to understand the modes of mechanical ventilation. As well, it is very tough for you to understand my podcast that I have uh, shared with you in the previous video. Let's talk about the parameters of respiration. Parameters on which the mechanical ventilation, when you go onto the monitor of mechanical ventilation and you have to adjust different parameters, what are those parameters and what is their significance? First of all is the tidal volume. It is the volume of the gas that is delivered with each breath. Typically, it is adjusted from 5 to 8 milliliter per kg of ideal body weight in volume control modes. So there is a formula. We do not take the general body weight of the patient. Rather, we have to take the ideal body weight, and there is a formula for calculating the ideal body weight. You can search it, or I would share it in some of my shorts. So you will first calculate the patient ideal body weight, then you will multiply with the value of 5 to 8 milliliter per kg. And a common starting point for a 70 kg male would be like 420 to 560 milliliter of the tidal volume. Then comes the respiratory rate, the number of breaths delivered per minute. Starting point is often 14 to 16 or up to 820 breaths per minute. But mostly we start from 16 breaths per minute. Titrated according to the ABG's report, we titrate to achieve adequate ventilation, mean partial pressure of carbon dioxide we adjusted, and oxygenation, that is partial pressure of oxygen. So we have to titrate these parameters. We have to titrate respiratory rate, for instance, to maintain the adequate ventilation and adequate oxygenation. So whenever we get the ABG's report, we see the partial pressure oxygen is how much. We will also study about how to read the ABG's report. But the two parameters, the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, it should be in the reference range. 35 to 45 is the normal value for partial pressure of carbon dioxide. And oxygenation, that is partial pressure of oxygen, we have to check for that as well. Then comes the positive end expiratory pressure, that is pressure maintained at the end of expiration. Whenever we are breathing, we inhale, take a deep breath, and exhale. Take a deep breath out. The pressure that remains inside the lung after expiration, after exhalation, is the PEEP, positive end expiratory pressure. That is pressure maintained at the end of expiration. A common starting point is 5 centimeter of water. So when you look at the ventilator to touch, you will touch the monitor and you will set the PEEP to 5. So 5 is the normal value. Most of the anesthesia team say that we can adjust it from 5 to 18, for 5 to 16. But usually we adjust it to 5 to 8 because if we increase the PEEP, it is better to adjust it at 5, and you can see accordingly if there is need to change or increase the value. Because there is a side effect of that. If you will keep on increasing the PEEP, what it will cause? It can rupture your alveoli. So if you will keep on increasing the PEEP by 5 centimeter water, not only it can rupture the alveoli, but it can also affect your blood pressure. So you have to first look at the blood pressure of the patient and see if the BP is normal. If the BP is low, you cannot increase PEEPs. It is dangerous because whenever we increase PEEP, it increases the intrathoracic pressure and it also affects the venous return towards the heart and lungs. So when the venous return towards the heart and lung will decrease, the preload will decrease. It will also reduce the blood pressure. It will also reduce the output of the heart, and the patient blood pressure can drop. Actually, the PEEP has maintained lung recruitment and prevent alveolar collapse. So, in certain conditions where the alveoli are more susceptible to be collapsed, the patient ventilation can be affected. So, PEEP maintains enough pressure inside the alveoli to prevent it from collapsing, which can reduce the work of breathing as well. Then comes the FiO2, fraction of inspired oxygen. The concentration of the inspired oxygen that is delivered to the patient by the machine is the fraction of inspired oxygen. Our starting point is often 0.21, that is 21%. The concentration of oxygen in normal air titrated to achieve target oxygen saturation. Although in most of the book it is written like that, but in the ICU settings, they do what that they set the FiO2 100% and then look at the SpO2 and look at the ABGs. If the SpO2 is 100 or more than 95, they try to reduce FiO2 by 10 after every 10 to 15 minutes. So for instance, they started FiO2 from 100% on a patient who is just coming. They don't know anything about the patient. They will adjust the FiO2 100%, then we'll look at the SpO2 level, that is saturation of oxygen. So they will keep on reducing and will keep on looking at the SpO2. If the saturation of oxygen is not dropping, they will keep on reducing the FiO2 by 10%. They can reduce it to up to 60%. And but if the patient saturation drops to 88 to or 92%, then it means the patient is already being compromised, so you cannot reduce further FiO2. Then we will come to talk about the inspiratory to expiratory ratio. Inspiratory to expiratory ratio, IE ratio, it is the ratio of the time spent inhaling or exhaling. The normal starting point when we are inspiring, it is like and expiring. If you check it on your own body when you are breathing, you can see that we exhale 2 times more than the inspiration time period. So inspiration to expiration ratio is 1:2. It can be adjusted accordingly. So we also adjust the machine to 1:2, but it can be adjusted accordingly to improve lung mechanics or gas exchange. So there are some other parameters, that is PIP, peak inspiratory pressure. What is that? It is the highest pressure reached during inspiration. So whenever I am inspiring, the highest pressure that will be achieved will be the peak inspiratory pressure. Then comes the plateau pressure. The plateau pressure, the pressure at the end of inspiration, it is the plateau pressure. The pressure at the end of inspiration, like I am inspiring, and at the end of inspiration, the pressure that I am having is the plateau pressure. It reflects the lung compliance. So if the patient has reduced plateau pressure, it means the patient lung compliance is affected. So we have to keep these parameters in mind. Then comes the flow rate. The rate at which gas is delivered during inspiration is the flow rate. If there is some obstruction, the flow rate will be affected. If the patient has bronchospasm, the flow rate will be affected. If the patient has some pathology that is narrowing the airways, the flow rate will be affected. So there are many parameters that are affecting the flow through the airways. So the rate at which gas is delivered during inspiration is the flow rate. So then comes the patient sensitivity. It varies from patient to patient, pathologist to pathologist. So the patient sensitivity, the level of patient effort needed to trigger a breath in assisted control or pressure support mode shows the patient sensitivity. Then we also talk about what is time pass. So whenever we are inspiring, an exchange of gas happens. That brief pass is called the time of pass. So a brief pass at the end of inspiration, basically, that allows the time for gas exchange is the time of pass. Then there is inspiration time as well, ti, and that inspiration time is actually the duration of inspiration. So inspiratory time is the duration of, or the time of inspiration. So in the ventilator modes, we talked about the four basic modes. Then comes the volume control and pressure control as well. So in the volume control, a preset tidal volume is delivered at a set rate regardless of the patient requirement, and this is the volume control. While in the pressure support, the ventilators provide pressure support only during spontaneous breaths initiated by the patient. What is the difference between volume control and pressure control ventilation? These are two distinct modes of mechanical ventilation. Both of these modes are designed to support patient with the respiratory failure. So in the volume control ventilation, tidal volume remains constant, while the peak inspiratory pressure may vary depending on the patient's lung compliance. In contrast, in the pressure control ventilation, the peak inspiratory pressure, because the machine is delivering the pressure, the peak inspiratory pressure remains constant and the tidal volume vary. So we have to keep in mind the two main things for basic understanding, that in the volume control, tidal volume is fixed, that is delivered by the machine, while the peak inspiratory pressure can vary depending on the patient's lung compliance, while in the pressure support, the machine is delivering a constant peak inspiratory pressure, while the tidal volume can vary depending on the patient. In other simple words, whenever we are adjusting the patient on the volume control, it means we are keeping the volume constant. We are, for example, giving a tidal volume of 500. Then the pressure will be adjusted by the machine, so the pressure will be variable. In contrast, when we are adjusting the patient on the pressure support, then the pressure will be constant, that a fixed pressure will be delivered by the machine, while the volume will be variable. Now we cannot control the volume, so the tidal volume will be variable. So this is the difference between the two modes of ventilation, that is whether we have to adjust the patient on the volume control or the pressure control. So if we are adjusting the volume, we cannot control the pressure, and if we are controlling the pressure, then we can not control the volume. So one thing is adjusted by us on the machine, the other thing is controlled by the machine itself. And why is it so when we are adjusting the patient on the volume control, and why can we not adjust the pressure? The reason is that, for instance, if we are adjusting the patient on 450 to 500 ml of the tidal volume, and the patient can have different lung situation. If the patient has stiff lungs, then the machine would have to deliver an increased pressure to give that 500 or 450 of tidal volume. But if the patient has compliant lungs, then the machine will deliver the reduced pressure. So the machine will vary the pressure according to the lung situation to give that 450 to 500 ml of the tidal volume. So that's why when we are giving the fixed or constant amount of the tidal volume, the pressure will be variable by the machine to deliver that amount of the tidal volume. So it depends on the lungs condition, whether the patient has some pathology, whether the lungs are stiff, or the patient has normal compliant lungs. So on the other hand, if we put a patient on a constant pressure, for instance, if I put a patient 10 millimeter of mercury of the pressure on the pressure support mechanical ventilation, then the volume, that is a tidal volume that is delivered to the lungs, will be variable. So if this much of pressure, that is 12 millimeter of mercury of pressure, for a stiff lung, it will deliver the less volume because the lung have some resistance, some stiffness. On the other hand, that same amount of pressure will deliver the normal tidal volume, required tidal volume, to the compliant lungs. So the lungs that takes easily the amount of volume that is being delivered to the lungs. So it is very important that whenever we have to keep it in mind that whenever we are keeping one variable constant, the other will be different. That whenever we are keeping one variable constant, that is pressure, when we are keeping the pressure constant, the volume, tidal volume can vary. When we are keeping the patient the volume control, volume is constant, then the other pressure, that is the other parameter, that will be different. That can be increased or decreased, that is variable. Next, we are going to talk about the indications of mechanical ventilation. That is how a layman or a person who doesn't ever have worked in the ICU would come to know that when to put the patient on the ventilator machine. So, first of all, you have to look at the patient. If the patient has low GCS, for instance, less than 8 GCS, it means the patient is not able to protect his airways. They are from the aspirations or secretions. The patient is not able to breathe because respiratory effort will be weak in that condition. So you have to put the patient on ventilation. The next situation is hypoxemia or hypercapnia. Hypoxemia, that is low blood oxygen level. You ask for the ABGs and the partial pressure of oxygen is below 60 millimeter of mercury, then it means the patient is hypoxic. You look at the saturation of oxygen that is dropping. You give 100% oxygen through the nasal cannula or face mask, but still the patient is not improving. The hypoxia is not improving. The patient is still in the lowest level of oxygen on the monitor. You are looking at the SpO2, saturation of oxygen, and it is less than 90, dropping, not improving. Then you have to go for the mechanical ventilation. It is a type 1 respiratory failure. Next, if the patient is hypercapnic, patient is retaining oxygen, the retention of carbon dioxide, that is partial pressure of carbon dioxide, will on the ABG report will be greater than 45 millimeter of mercury. Normal range is 35 to 45, and now the patient is having increased carbon dioxide in the body. It means the patient is not removing the excess of carbon dioxide. There is excessive carbon dioxide in the lungs. It is not removing. So it's a type 2 respiratory failure. In that condition, we have to put the patient on the ventilator to assist that patient, to help that patient to remove that excess carbon dioxide and reduce the work of breathing. So the patient can also have combined condition of hypoxia, that is low blood level oxygen, hypoxemia and hypercapnia, or can have both condition at the same time. So we have to do what? We have to put the patient on the mechanical ventilation. So these are the 3 basic things we have to keep in mind. But besides that, on general observation, if you look that patient is having some airway obstruction, like patient comes with anaphylaxis, there is swelling of the airways, swelling of the tissues, and there is some obstruction due to something, or there is some bronchospasm also blocks the airways, or there is oropharyngeal infection, and that can lead to inflammation and edema. So in all that situation, whenever you feel that the patient has airway obstruction, you have to put the patient, you have to protect the patient airway and put the patient on the mechanical ventilation. Whenever we are resuscitating a patient on some site, we have to first look for the airway. If there is some obstruction, we have to remove that. If the patient has some situation like this, where we cannot remove the obstruction, like bronchospasm, inflammation, swelling of the tissue, then we have to mechanically ventilate the patient through after intubation. Next is the condition called dynamic airways. If someone has severe trauma or airways infection, that can make the airways collapsible. So that are called dynamic airways. So airways obstruction or collapse can happen in such conditions, and we have to put the patient on the mechanical ventilation after intubation. There are certain conditions, like whenever you feel some patient come with the asthma, severe case of asthma, or COPD's exacerbation, and you feel that patient is using accessory muscles, patient is tachypneic, rapidly breathing, there is nasal flaring, all these are the signs of the respiratory distress. So patient has increased work of breathing, so the patient will exhaust and the patient can expire. So conditions that cause increased work of breathing, like I told, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, then there can be pneumonia, severe pneumonia, there can be cardiogenic pulmonary edema, or there can be ARDS. So all these situations, when you look at the patient is in distress, there is increased work of breathing, you have to put the patient mechanical ventilation. So these are certain conditions, and there is another condition that we often see in our medical setups, that is traumatic brain injury and coma. So traumatic brain injury can also cause respiratory depression. So after looking at the patient condition, you can put the patient on the mechanical ventilator. Some patients come with cardiac arrest and shock. This can also lead to respiratory failure and respiratory compromise. So patients who come with the cardiac arrest and shock, we have to put this patient on the mechanical ventilator. Then there is some respiratory illness, severe infection that can cause a lung damage, inflammation or fluid buildup. In all those conditions, we have to put the patient on mechanical ventilation. You can clearly see the hypoxemia, the patient saturation dropping, the patient is deteriorating, so you can help that patient with the mechanical ventilation. Then comes the neuromuscular disorders, the condition that affect our nerves and muscles. So GB syndrome, that is Guillain-Barré syndrome, and MG, that is myasthenia gravis, these are some common conditions. These are some common neuromuscular disorders. Then there are some other disorders in which the patient respiratory muscles can compromise. But any neuromuscular disorder that can compromise your neurons and the muscles, the respiration, in that condition we have to put the patient on the mechanical ventilation. So I think this is enough to understand for you to when to put the patient on the mechanical ventilator. Thank you so much for hearing this. Take care, and please like, share and subscribe this channel. There are more videos that are going to come for you that can help you to improve your knowledge. Thank you. Take care.